That movie was so good. I found myself kind of in shock, actually, at the beginning of it. I couldn't believe I was actually finally seeing it. I could not believe it. My teeth were actually chattering almost the whole way through the movie, and I had to keep, like, opening my jaw. I had to keep reminding myself to, because I didn't want to be chattering loudly next to a complete stranger and all the people I went to the movie with. It was incredible. It was incredible. They only did as much as they needed to remind you that it was an 80s setting, but it in no way detracted from the plot. I was really scared that it would, especially just seeing all of the styling that they did on the characters and just of the town in general. But the fact that they changed the time period in which the story took place did not detract from it whatsoever. In fact, I think it may have made things less complicated. I think it may have made things more streamlined for them. It was interesting that they kind of took out the racial aspect of things that Mike Hanlon dealt with as a kid. It was interesting that they took that out of the equation with Henry Bowers, and they still referenced it when it came to the black spot, but they did it so subtly that you almost, unless you were really, really on it and paying attention to every single thing that was said, you almost would miss the reference. It was interesting how they kind of took, they included the black spot there, like they included it on the map, but it was almost just as a nod to people who had read the book. And it was interesting that instead of this great story, this great exposition that Mike gave in the book that there was no way for them to incorporate into the movie, they made it his parents that died in the fire. That was very interesting to me. You know, they included the ironworks. They even showed the standpipe in the photos, and they even showed the damn lumberjack as well. It was also interesting how they attributed all of that to Ben, because there was no way for them to put all of Mike's exposition in there. So I didn't really necessarily like that they minimized Mike's role in the story, because he's essentially your narrator in the book, you know, and in the movie they made that part of what Ben did. They also took away the fact that Ben was the architect, and they made him more of the historian, where Ben being the architect had a ton to do with how they defeated it in the book. You know, if he hadn't known how to make the slugs, they wouldn't have defeated it in the book. And I'm not sure that I agree with the fact that they kind of took that away but I understand that they were trying to reinforce the fact that Bill was the leader of the Losers Club. I'm just in awe at how good everything was. I loved Eddie's little 80s shorts. Oh my god, they were so cute. It was so cute. I loved it. I think instead of using the photo album like they did with Bill, and then with Bill and was it Richie later, they used the projector. Like, that was interesting because that kind of put you more in the time period, I guess. That was something that kind of brought you back to the current setting and reminded you that this was happening in the 80s. But I think that was also brilliant because, I mean, save for the fact that it was in the previews, that was terrifying because if you had read the book, you had no idea what to expect. You had no idea how it would manifest through the projector because that was not something that was in the books. I loved how close they stuck to the story with Eddie's leper. I loved that. I wish they almost would have included that part where he like did this comical gopher like pop out of the ground in front of Eddie when Eddie was escaping. But I understand that the brevity that they were forced into in making this into a movie format probably would not have allowed for that. That would have been so absurd that it would have taken away from the seriousness of the movie that was necessary to convey as often as possible. I thought it was interesting that they streamlined Bev's story by taking her mom away, and I love how they conveyed how utterly disgusting her father was, despite the fact that they changed so many things. I wish they had included more of Bill and Eddie's friendship, because I feel like there was sort of this disconnect and sort of this something about the Losers Club felt scattered without that core being there, without it being established that it was like Bill and Eddie against the world. You know, sometimes Stan would show up, sometimes Richie would show up, and then, you know, Bev and Ben, and then Mike. I thought that kind of made everything feel sort of disjointed, but I understand why they did it. And while I felt like Eddie was kind of shortchanged the beginning of the movie, as it went on, he became so utterly endearing and I think they really did his character justice. I think it's kind of weird how they took away the fact that Bev had such incredible aim and that they gave her the bullseye, the slingshot, because I feel like that was one of Bev's most redeeming qualities that made her more than just like girl in story, you know? I wish they had included that, but I still think they did her incredible justice as a tangible, relatable character. I think that Henry Bowers, like, as soon as you saw him, even in the previews, you knew that was Henry Bowers. I think they picked an incredible kid to do him. I liked that they made it pretty clear which one of them was Belch Huggins, which one was Victor Criss. And I thought it was interesting how they kind of combined Moose and Patrick Hocksetter into one person. It sucked that they took Patrick's book death out, because I thought the way he died in the book was way more badass than how he was just attacked by the drowned kids in the sewers in the movie. But I understand that they streamlined that because they couldn't take the whole 15 minutes necessary to convey how disgusting and horrifying Patrick was. And it would have seemed a death undeserving of a character as benign as he seemed to be when they kind of truncated him for the movie. You know, the death he had related to the refrigerator in the book, it wouldn't have fit the character that they made for the movie. And I thought it was interesting how they combined both of them. And they did the rock fight so well. Even though they had to shorten so many things, it didn't feel like they were trying to placate those of us who had watched the 90s movie. It didn't feel like they were trying to placate those of us who've read the book. Every homage they paid to us readers was so satisfying and beautiful, and they captured the essence and the emotion and just the entire feel of every event that they made sure to include for us. I love that they included Beep Beep Richie. Like, I know they included it in a different way, but like when it seemed like they were going to change it and just use Shut Up Richie as the way they constantly addressed him, I thought, if that's all they do, if they change it to Shut Up Richie, if that's what they reduce it to, I'm going to be really angry. And they didn't. They included it. And it was so cool. It was so cool. Oh my God. I thought that it was really interesting how they changed the way Eddie's arm gets broken. I thought that was fascinating. I didn't think that I liked it right when it happened, but I was so glad that they included that detail, because something about that was so vital, so crucial to Eddie's character, and just to maintaining the purity of the story overall. Somehow including that detail and so many of the other details that they did kept the story so sacred in my mind. And there were so many details that they found a way to include that they didn't necessarily have to, but that they did anyway. Ben's mummy was there, even if it was only very briefly. And the turtle was referenced twice. They even included the turtle. The fact that they did that, the fact that they found a way to integrate the turtle into a movie that in no way could truly include the turtle the way it is significant in the novel, it was amazing. It was amazing. It was so amazing. It was so good. It was so good. It was amazing. And I loved that Ben and Beverly got their moment. When Ben was sitting there reading the postcard that he wrote in the library, I almost started crying. I got tears in my eyes, and I had to bring it back in and remind myself there's a complete stranger sitting to your side, because I couldn't have started crying. I didn't like that Beverly didn't figure out on her own that it was Ben the way she did in the book, but I understand that there's no way they could have included that with time constraints. There's no way. And when she did figure out it was him, I again almost cried because I'm an idiot and I couldn't handle it. I loved that they included Bill Stutter. Like, I was scared that they weren't going to because of the previews, but they did. I mean, obviously, the sound people could have easily edited that out for the trailers. But I'm so glad that they included it, because that meant so much. It was so good. It was so good. It was just so good. The scene with Beverly in the bathroom was so good. It was amazing. I loved the leper. I loved that they kept the leper. I really, really wish that they would have kept Ben's mummy, because Ben's mummy is the most underrated iteration of it. Ben is the most underrated manifestation of it, I think, in the book. I don't know if it was just like how tired I was when I read it, that I was alone in the room, but Ben's mummy to me is the scariest incident, is the scariest way in which it visits any of the losers. I think that the mummy is absolutely terrifying. Something about the contrast between it and the freezing cold and the fear and the loneliness of being out in that terrible winter storm that Ben was in. Something about the mummy terrified me more than anything else. So I wish that they had included that, but I understand why they did what they did. And I thought it was awesome that they put such an emphasis on that kid who was killed in the ironworks explosion, that was a kid whose head was blown off. I thought that was just a phenomenal, just beautiful detail that they put in there. I'm so glad that they emphasized that and how much that affected Ben. And I really do like Mike. Like, the kid who played Mike was so handsome, and he did such a good job of portraying such a beautiful character. He really did. Even though you lost the fact that one of the ways in which Mike was so pivotal and central to the story was the exposition that he gives you in the book and the writings and research he's done on Derry and the thing that lives beneath Derry, he still preserved the essence of Mike in the movie. And I don't know how he did that. It was so amazing. It was just so good. It was so good. I don't know how I feel about Eddie's mom. I don't know how I feel about the fact that he wasn't in the hospital, because Eddie Kaspbrak is an extremely important character to me. He is one of the most important fictional characters out of all fictional characters to me. And I wish they had included his specific story of how his arm was broken, the hospital, that confrontation with his mom, because that is probably one of the most important parts of the story to me, because I love Eddie so much. But he still stood up to her. I don't really feel like maybe they showed his evolution as a character, his coming of age, the same way that they did in the book. But again, what could they do with the time constraints that they had? I think, considering the constraints they had, they did a phenomenal job with Eddie's character. It hurts my heart how much I love Eddie. And Richie, I mean, in the book, I liked Richie, but now I understand why everybody loves Richie so much. Finn Wolfhard brought Richie to life. He did a phenomenal job. It was incredible. It was so good. And I didn't think they were going to show it at the beginning with Georgie. I thought they were going to cut away. And when they showed it, I went into shock, because I could not believe that they showed it. I could not believe it. It was incredible. It was unbelievable. It was just done so well. It was done so well. It was just oh, the movie was beautifully done. It was remarkable. It was charming. It felt so real. It felt so authentic. All of the interactions between the losers. There was no time in the movie when I was irritated, when I was bored, when I was distracted. It was paced so artfully, and it unfolded so artfully, and it was almost kind of enjoyable. It almost felt like a gift you were being given as somebody who had read the book, seeing how they were going to put all those elements together and incorporate them. And there were so many things that they did not have to include. They could have conveyed the same story. They could have given you the essence of the story, the mandatory components of the story, without including certain details, and yet they found ways to integrate all of these details that are so important to those of us who have read the book. They found ways to truly honor the novel with this movie adaptation. I'm just in awe. I'm in complete and total awe. It's amazing. It's so amazing. It had a sense of humor. It was charming, and it was so scary. I mean, yeah, they were jump scares, I guess, but you cannot fall back on the cliche that, well, jump scares aren't really scary because it's just startling you. It's just appealing to a baser part of, human instinct. It doesn't really have anything to do with actual fear. No, everything that was scary about Pennywise in this movie was scary because of the story, because of the suspense, because of the cinematography, because of the score. it wasn't just cheap jump scares. Everything about the horror elements was just masterfully done. It was just horrifying in a way that was almost new. I mean, how do you make something unique, truly unique, in a market so saturated with so much just contrived, absurd horror nonsense? I mean, the horror market is completely saturated. Horror movies are everywhere, and every style, every element of horror that was ever unique and ingenuitive has been done to death. Yet this felt truly unique and new. And I don't know how on earth they did that, but they did. I am stunned. I am shocked at how good this movie was. I'm almost like, as somebody who's read the book, I feel such gratitude. I feel so honored and so flattered that so much of the detail from Derry, from the book, was preserved and interwoven so masterfully and deftly into this movie. I am in complete and utter awe. I'm just in awe. I am amazed and so impressed and dying, apparently. I don't know what else to say. It was just so good. It was so good. If you have read this book, you will like the movie. You will like the movie. You will be... This movie is satisfying. It truly is, to someone who has read the book and who loves the characters. It's just... It really, really does the book justice. And Bill Skarsgård is... He's terrifying. So... That's all, I guess, for this video. I just had to get my thoughts down while they were fresh in my head, and, wow. I can't wait to see that again with my mom later. And hopefully I have to find more people to see this movie with, because, wow.